entertaining driving that sets everything up for these last two races. On board with David Donoghue, son of the late great Mark Donoghue, on the 2.238 mile lap, down to the long sweeping left-hander. It's a tight hairpin left-hander. He goes on a bit for the first corner and then accelerating through a little kink right in this section that is so visible to the fans who can see a great deal of the Laguna Seca Raceway. Then a little short straight through the next 90-degree right-hander, fairly straightforward corner this one, before accelerating towards the uphill section that will begin through the next left-hander. This begins the climb up to that most famous part of the Laguna Seca Raceway, the corkscrew. Climbing uphill now beneath the bridge, there's another quite challenging left-hander to come through before they begin an even steeper climb. And this is where it all begins to get exciting. Steeper uphill, blind on the entry to the corkscrew. The road bends round to the right. They have to get onto the brakes and then down through the gears into the tight left-hander that drops into nowhere as they plunge downhill again through the right-hander, and then a very tricky long left-hander. A lot of time to be gained or lost through that corner as they come back down the hill through a sweeping right, past the pit lane entry, and through to the last corner, a sharp 90-degree left-hander. Uphill again slightly as they come across start-finish line, and that is a lap of Laguna Seca. David Donoghue then is the man leading the championship, and he starts from pole position alongside the Australian driver Neil Crompton. Donoghue driving the Pac West Dodge Stratus. Neil Crompton is in the Tasman Motorsport Honda Accord. On the second row of the grid is Neil Crompton's teammate Peter Cunningham in another of the Hondas, and Dominic Dobson also on the second row, the co-owner of the Pac West team, former IndyCar driver, now racing in touring cars. David Welsh and the former champion Randy Pobst are next up on the third row of the grid. Randy Pobst switching from Honda to BMW for this year. Forrest Granlund and Bob Shader share row 4. Row 5 of the grid sees Paul Charsley and Dave Jolly alongside one another. Charsley in the BMW, Dave Jolly in the Pontiac. And on his own at the back of the grid, a little bit of a lonely start for Ron Emick. So ready for the start of the race. Some 17 laps of round 17 of the championship. Standing start for the touring cars. And away they go. And from the front row of the grid, it's a good start from Neil Crompton on the outside in the white car, but it's a dismal start for David Donoghue in the red and white car. In fact, he goes back to third place. He could even lose that third place as they go into the first corner to Randy Pobst. I think he has lost it indeed. Don't forget, David Donoghue's chasing points here. He can wrap up the championship fairly easily, but he still wants to finish as well up as possible. He now tries to retake that third place from Randy Pobst. Looks as though he's going to do it through the right-hander. He has the inside line into the next right-hander as well. Good racing. Dominic Dobson follows these two through, and still it's unsettled as to exactly who's got third place. Neil Crompton is the race leader, though. He made the best start, gets away from teammate Peter Cunningham. Pobst eventually does hold on to that third position, and David Donoghue, the 30-year-old from Malvern in Pennsylvania, finds himself back down in fourth position. Oh, somebody running a little bit wide, and in fact that was Donoghue. He loses more time. He goes too wide through the corner, loses 2 more places as Peter Cunningham moves up. Cunningham getting past Randy Pobst as they come down through the corkscrew. Up front, remember, Neil Crompton is still our race leader. Dominic Dobson now at the head of this group. There is Neil Crompton, 36-year-old from Sydney, who's had a great deal of success in this championship, but they had to sit out a couple of rounds as, look at this, battle continues. Dominic Dobson on the left in the yellow and orange car, competing with Randy Pobst on the right, and Pobst in the BMW looking to go back through once again. Coming down towards that first corner, sweeping through the gentle left, now into hairpin left, hard on the brakes here, and you can see the tire marks. Oh, they look like there was a little bit of contact behind them between David Donoghue and and the other car involved looked like David Welsh, and it just getting a little bit tricky for both of those drivers. Randy Pobbs then holding on to third position at the moment. Last year's champion hasn't really looked like repeating that championship winning performance though this year. The BMW hasn't really had the same sort of pace as the Honda that he drove last year, but he's still holding on to this third position at the moment. 39 years old, from Melbourne in Florida as opposed to the Melbourne in Australia. Randy Pobbs racing with TC Klein Racing. And David Donoghue is on the move. Donoghue taking the place, and that puts him back into the battle for third position. There goes Randy Pobbs then, still holding on to that third position at the moment. A winner of various championships in the States in the past. He won the 1992 Firestone Firehawk Endurance Drivers Championship. That was in fact the second time he'd won that. He won it back in 1990 as well. Oh, but this time there's contact between him and Dominic Dobson. It's all getting a bit frantic. David Donoghue makes contact with him and Pobbs spins it in the end. That was thanks to a little bit of help from David Donoghue. But it was all getting a little bit frantic, and he looks as though he's stalled the motor now, which doesn't help him at all. Eventually Randy Pobbs gets it running once more, and off he goes to rejoin the race. Well, not going at all well for him at this point. A man who won 5 races last season, but really hasn't been quite as strong this year. So there are the two Dodge Stratus cars. David Donoghue still looking to win the championship if he can get 2 reasonable results. Here's a replay of that last incident when he just made a little bit of contact with the back of Randy Pobbs' car. Oh, in fact, he ended up spinning as well. So all the problems for Randy Pobbs there, as Neil Crompton, still race leader from Peter Cunningham in second place. The 2 Tasman Motorsport Hondas running extremely well here and really dominating proceedings. As I mentioned, Crompton ran out of, or the team ran out of money earlier on in the year, had to sit out a couple of rounds. If it hadn't been for that, then Crompton could well be challenging more strongly for the championship. Here's the battle for third, Dominic Dobson and David Donoghue. David Donoghue now going past, Dobson allowing him to do that. He doesn't want to mess up Donoghue's chances, obviously, of taking the title. So Donoghue should finish in third position and score good points, setting things up to win the championship in the last round. But Neil Crompton is going to win round number 17 of the North American Touring Car Championship, and that will be his 6th victory of the season. Great performance from the Australian, who's raced a lot in Australia. He's also a race commentator, working with television in Australia and in the United States. He comes across to win the race ahead of teammate Peter Cunningham. David Donoghue taking third place though, and Donoghue just needs a good finish in the last race, top 3 finish in the last race to ensure the title. Race 2 then, Crompton, Donoghue, Cunningham and Pobbs on the first couple of rows as we get ready for the start of this one. Let's see whether Donoghue gets off the line a bit better than he did last time. The reds are on. They changed to green very quickly, and they're waving a flag as well because of the problem of perhaps of seeing the lights, I don't know. The green flag waves. And again, Donoghue makes a dreadful start. The red cars drop right back. He's back to 4th place, 5th place as Randy Pobbs goes past, as we ride on board for a moment with Paul Charsley. Crompton it is with the lead though, and it looks as though he's going to try and repeat the same performance as in the first race here. Cunningham is in 2nd position and Randy Pobbs lying in 3rd again. The BMW driver who had that rather entertaining spin in the first race, running well. There's Peter Cunningham, and then Pobbs, then Dominic Dobson again, who's ahead once more of David Donoghue. Donoghue perhaps just getting a bit of an attack of nerves on both starts, really not getting off the line at all. Well, Dominic Dobson goes off the track altogether, gets back on, but that allows his teammate to pick up a place. David Donohue finished in 3rd place in the inaugural season of the Super Touring Championship, which was 1996. Looking to wrap up the title here in this final race. Neil Crompton, though, a veteran of all sorts of racing, saloon car racing in Australia. Also, he raced single-seaters, Formula Brabham, Formula Holden. Oops, somebody disappearing in the background. That looks as though it may have been Dobson again, was it? Running very wide indeed. No, it wasn't. It was one of the other... yes, it was Dobson. He's having a bit of an entertaining time, not doing a great deal to help out teammate David Donohue in this second race. David Donohue now putting Randy Pobst under pressure once again. Donohue maintaining the tradition of success within the family. Of course, Mark Donohue was a racing legend both in the United States and when he came to race in Formula One, one of the best ever American racers who so sadly lost his life at the Österreich-Ring back in the 70s. But David Donohue continuing the family tradition of being a top racing driver in the Super Touring category here in the United States. Sadly, however, this is the very last of the North American Touring Car Championship races, at least for the foreseeable future. The series, which has been running now for 2 years, never really developed the support from the manufacturers that was needed to make it into something spectacular, and the rather poorly supported grids have meant that at the end of this season it has been announced that it will not exist in the 1998 season. Disappointment for Alan Gow, the man behind British Touring Car Championship, who put this North American package together. He was very hopeful of getting a few more works cars involved for next season, but it wasn't to be, and so sadly this will be the last race of the North American Touring Car Championship. The 2-litre cars perhaps not going down quite so well in the United States as the V8 thumpers of NASCAR, etc., that produce such a great noise, and perhaps the American audience just that little bit more familiar with the Trans Am racing as well, satisfying the need for V8 engines. The 2-litre engines sounding a little bit strange perhaps in North America, whereas they sound fantastic at a British race circuit. This battle still continuing. Randy Pobst versus David Donohue. Still up front, Neil Crompton with the advantage and really not having any problems at all to maintain his lead over Peter Cunningham. Down towards the first corner again. This is where the two of them hit each other before, remember. David Donohue being very brave here in trying to go around the outside. I don't know, Randy Pobst must be very tempted to give him a bit of a tap. They're side by side again. Good stuff between these two, and still Donohue has the slight edge and manages to go into 3rd place. Remember, he needs 3rd position to confirm himself as champion, and he gets past the BMW of Randy Pobst in a good clean maneuver. Back on board with Randy Pobst now, and I don't think there's an awful lot he's going to be able to do about the pace of the Dodge Stratus. Donohue was on pole, but he makes a mistake there. He turned in a bit too fast and the car slid wide, and oh, he must have had a few butterflies there as again he saw the BMW catching him up. No change though up front as Neil Crompton heads for win number 7 in the series and ends up winning more races than anybody else in the championship this year. Tremendous performance from him, and thanks to some extra sponsorship from Labatt's Blue and McCormick Lines that joined in later on in the season, on board with Crompton there, just watching him at the wheel. That allowed him to complete the season and give Tasman Motorsport the chance to take some more wins to finish the year. Crompton then, a very professional driver, great job done by him this year. And he comes through to win both races here at Laguna Seca to finish off the season. Crompton wins it, but Donohue is going to do enough to be champion. David Donohue coming through to finish in 3rd place in this race, and he wraps up the title, and he takes the first ever championship for the Pac West team, who of course had such a strong season in the IndyCar racing as well, with wins for both Mark Blundell and Mauricio Gugelmin throughout the season. But it's up to David Donohue to take the first championship title for the Pac West team. Perhaps they can follow that up in the kart series in 1998.